It's 2 from 3 in the race to avoid relegation to the Championship after the town fell to a 2-1 defeat to Wolverhampton Wanderers at Molineux on Saturday afternoon. Jimbo, squeaky bum time now, mate.
Same as it ever was.
Indeed so, yeah. We'll go through the game and what it all means and everything around it after this intro.
Can you believe it? We are Premier League! Yes!
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got these massive souls.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Hello everyone, welcome along to the latest episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast. As always, it's Kev and the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe coming at you. And as I said before the intro, we're going to look back at Wolverhampton Wanderers 2, Luton Town 1 in the Premier League. But before we do that, Jimbo, it's only fair that you bow down and pay homage to the great Josko Gvardiol, who got Manchester City off to a good start, and none of this damn you nonsense now.
More like, damn, Guardiola. Well done, boy.
Absolutely. Thank you very, very much, Josko, and indeed to you, Erling Haaland, for finally turning up against someone other than Luton and scoring a goal. So, yeah, massive help, as you were, really.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's a big opportunity missed to get some points from what I thought was, I went for 1-0, didn't I, in the preview, but I thought there was a point there, and it is a big opportunity missed with 3 games from the end of the season, so it is squeaky bum time. But when you look at it on the fullness of all the results that have happened elsewhere, it's just the same situation that when you go into Friday, knowing you beat Everton, you're out of the top, top 3 would be nice.
We'll definitely be out of the top 3.
If you beat Everton, out of the bottom 3, at least for 24 hours anyway. Well, a bit less. But so as disappointing it is, it hasn't really changed much in the main complexion of the season.
No, it hasn't. Disappointing result, but I have to say, I wasn't massively disappointed with the performance. The first thing that had to happen was there had to be a reaction right after that Brentford game, and there was that. I thought Luton were really, really good in the first 30 minutes, 35 minutes, pretty much until they scored, actually, Wolves. I thought we were the better side. It looked like if there was going to be a goal, it was going to be us. Hwang was causing a few problems, seemed to go down every single time Mengi breathed on him, which you're always worried because we played so high, so far into their half of the pitch. We basically left an acre of space behind Mengi, which Hwang was trying to get into. And of course, when he kept on going down, you're kind of worried that the referee thinks that Mengi's pulled him down, and as the last man, that'll be the end of that. Thankfully, he saw through all of that histrionics. He was actually pretty good, Coot, for the first time ever. Maybe it's just because he's become known that he's a Notts County fan. I don't know if that's anything to do with it. I hope it is. But the problem we've got now is we've taken so many beatings in this league. When that first goal goes in against us, the reaction was not good. And listen, they're human beings. There's only so many, not even failures, so many sort of punches that you can take before eventually it starts to get you down. And the reaction to that first goal was not good. It took us probably 30, 35 minutes until the subs started coming on to get any sort of foothold in the game. I looked at it, and you side on at Molineux, and shoulders slumped when the first one went in. Now, the situation of the goal may well have been part of it, deflection. Otherwise, Kaminski's just gobbling it all up and no problem. But I think we're in that situation now where in these last 3 games, the first goal, we've said about the first goal all season, but it's even more massive in these next 3 games than it's ever been, because they're on this, the kind of, if we're using boxing analogy, the kind of one more hit from going, and we really need to get that blow in before we're knocked out.
Totally agree. There's not been many occasions that I can think of, and off the top of my head, where you've conceded the first goal and gone on to win. You've got the Bournemouth one, I suppose, at home, which may be different because it is at home. as opposed to at Molineux, but it makes it so much more difficult to concede against a team. And I think probably it is the way that it went in as well, because if you're playing well up until that point and it goes in that way, in a similar way, if it's an own goal of Hashi's face in previous games and that sort of thing, it does feel a bit like the cards against you, really, isn't it? Because, what more can you do there?
Because we'd seen the threat out twice. The long ball, and we'll come on to the long ball in a minute because it was so much part of our game plan that forced them into that. But the long ball we dealt with, Cunha, Reece Burke saw him out. Unfortunately, Cunha still managed to get the ball out to Hwang. But even then, Mengi stood him up. He's got him in a position where Hwang's going to have to either get lucky, which he did, or have an absolute, thunderbolt to beat Kaminsky. So we've actually defended it brilliantly, and it still ends up in the back of our net through bad luck. And then you're like, someone up there, just help us out, please.
Yeah, I mean, that's a killer, isn't it? It is for everyone else. It's probably the same reaction, like everyone in the stands and anyone watching it wherever they could watch it.
The seat in front of me certainly felt the full force of my frustration because it didn't enough get my boot put through it. Thankfully, it was strong enough to rebound my boot and only damage my big toe. But yeah, I wasn't impressed with it. It's just...
There you go, Wolves. If you find a damaged seat,
it's absolutely not damaged. I can guarantee that it's not damaged. I don't think my left foot's strong enough to damage a paper bag, let alone a plastic seat. But if we're feeling that in the stands, the boys that are going through it and busting their balls to do it, they're only feeling it tenfold. They're human beings at the end of the day.
It's got to be worse for them because they're putting all the effort in, haven't they? They were. And when you're trying your hardest and then this luck is just not with you. I mean, even when the team sheets come out, the luck's not with you because we were talking beforehand what threats they've got. They've gone 6 games without a win. They've got injury crisis themselves. And then suddenly they're able to put together their main strike force for the first time in 2024. You're like, how's your luck? It's just not going well.
Minus Neto for any Wolves fans that are watching. I don't actually think any Wolves fans are going to be detrimental on this because I saw so many Wolves fans on the way as we were walking out said, I really hope you stay up and, really complimentary to us as we were before the podcast. You're right about the team sheet. I looked at it. The first one you looked for was Neto. No Neto, happy days. Then you look at the 11. Oh, for Christ's sake. Hwang. Oh no, Cunha as well. Could use to not have... You've got Man City next week. Couldn't you have saved them for Man City? But not to be. However, our own team sheet had a boost as well in amongst the substitutes. You've been lied to for a second week in succession. Eli was back. He was on the bench, and we'll come on to his cameo sort of towards the end, but just his name gave everyone a lift, really. And of course, the important thing was the 3 centre-halves from last week who were 50-50. We all thought they'd play, but they were all still on the team sheet. Unfortunately, it's now known that Issa Kabore is out for the season, which is a bit of a blow, to be fair.
It is, because he had been in really good form. If you take away the Tottenham own goal, but his reaction after the Villa winner and losing his marker there was really good, and he'd been playing fantastically well. And we kind of thought that would be the case, that he wouldn't at least be playing for this game, but to have him out for the whole season is, albeit it's 3 games, but yeah, it's a blow because going forward he was really good and he gave options there, and it gives an opportunity for Hashioka to play in his proper position. But the guy's been thrown in the deepest of deep ends this season, and it's just nothing's gone right for him, really. And I don't blame him at all, because he's not a centre back, and he's had to be up against bloody Erling Haaland, only the greatest striker in the world at the moment. Yeah, it's ridiculous, really. So it gives him that chance, but it's not the same. You can talk about giving opportunities and chances, but it's not the same as a player that's firing and full of confidence as a player that's not had the greatest of starts to his Luton career, and hasn't really had a chance to shine in the position he was expecting to play in. So, yeah, very disappointing for Issa. Whether we see him ever again in a Luton shirt is up for debate, isn't it? But I don't think he's unlikely to get into the Manchester City side, as you never know. But it depends probably what league Luton are in.
What league Luton are in, and you would imagine that Hashi has been signed as the long-term option down that side. You're right about Hashi. We'll speak about him a little bit later because there's so much social media nonsense that's been written about him. I mean, you say he's been thrown in the deep end. He's been thrown off a cliff into a tsunami, really, hasn't he? It's it's ridiculous, really.
Yeah, it's really.
But the three centre-halves, Burke, Mengi, Osho, they got together again. This time they all played 90 minutes. That is a positive as we go into these last three. If those three stay fit for these three games, there is still a chance, because we know that defensive resources are short in supply, so we need these three to stay fit. So that's a good thing. And as I said a minute ago, the one thing that we were looking for was a real positive reaction. Luton were on the front foot. Right from the start, they're on the front foot. It's easy to forget this, the way that the game's panned out and the result at the end of it. You remember the negative stuff rather than the positive stuff, especially when the positive stuff came before the negative stuff. The first shot on goal was the Ross Barkley one from distance, which it looked like that was arrowing into the top corner. Jose Sarr's made a really good save from that. We've had a couple of other chances. Carlton Morris has gone through. He's got the other side of Kilman, gone through one-on-one. He's just not got the pace or the power in his legs anymore to keep him away. So the defender come across, and that move kind of broke down. But that was a really sort of positive opportunity. And then literally seconds before the goal, all throughout the season, I've mentioned that I don't want to be critical in any way, shape or form to these boys because they're trying their absolute best. But I think his reaction will allow me to be critical here. Carlton has to score. The cross in just outside the 6-yard box, that ball has to end up in the back of the net. In our situation, or at the very least it has to end up in a corner of the goal that Jose Sarr has to pull off an absolute worldie. You just can't head that straight at him for two reasons. First of all, you've missed a golden opportunity, and second of all, by heading it straight into his hands, he's gone the front foot to get the ball up the other end of the pitch and launch the attack, which 20 seconds later puts us a goal down. And when you think of I think that might well have been a reason why the shoulder slumped as well, not just the way the goal went in, but the fact that I think someone said it was 19 seconds from chance to goal. So 19 seconds earlier, we should be one up. He's got to score, Carlton. His reaction was absolutely right. He knows it. I'm not telling him anything that he doesn't know, and he'll have gone to sleep last night. Probably didn't go to sleep last night because he knows he should have scored. But that is the difference, isn't it? If teams that stay in the Premier League comfortably, that goes in the back of the net. It's, and then obviously the sucker punch was just even harder to take.
Well, yeah, I mean, you see it in the game before Brentford. It's not even a chance for the first goal from Vissa, and he smacks it in from 25 yards. Carlton, everybody knows when attacking headers, you've got to try and head that down into the ground. It makes it more difficult for the goalie to judge it, and if you get it either side of him as well, at least forcing him to make a save. It's to head it straight at him is not great. The chances are fewer these days in recent weeks, and when they come along, obviously you've got to take them, and if you don't, that really is the difference. And it's a sucker punch though, isn't it? And you go down the other end, and it's not exactly a clean strike itself, but that one goes in. You just can't buy a bit of luck at the moment.
Because they really didn't look great in that first half, Wolves. They had the chance that Chan got through with the one time where he did burst the offside trap. He got through and Kaminsky saved the one-on-one. And that was really the only time they saw our goal. They didn't see it certainly they didn't see it regularly. I mean, Kaminsky yet again is not overworked. I think he's made one save in both halves. Semedo one in the second half. And yet, I'm pretty sure, and some stats sites differ in sort of number and thing, but I'm pretty sure we had more shots on target yesterday, and yet we've come out losing the game. And therein lies, I mean, what you just said, Wang and Cunha versus our returning striker only gets 15 minutes off the bench, and that's compelled us to another defeat.
Right, yeah, exactly. That's the luck of it, isn't it? That Luton have been so decimated by injuries, and Wolves have as well. Let's be honest, but they get their players back, and they were able to perform to a very high level. I mean, they were very good in the press. It didn't necessarily lead to the goals, but it means you can't have that much forward momentum as if they're they're very good at keeping tabs on the three defenders, and it has to go backwards and forwards rather than, that's the whole point of the high press, isn't it? It's to stop that. It's the first line of defence to be out there. And they come straight back in and have they have a good enough a game that Match of the Day are highlighting how good their play was. I mean, like I said, I don't think it necessarily influenced the goals of it, but it all helps to give them something to play for and hang their hat on. So and it's great, as great as it is to see Eli on the subs bench, and you can't play him from the start, and you're also sort of worried whether he breaks down again. Hopefully, it didn't look like it. It didn't look like he would do, but all the Luton players that come back in, they're not, well, most of them anyway, they're not Premier League battle hardened, are they? So they're going to have to take a little adjustment period to get into it. We haven't got any time for adjustment, really. So they're going to have to hit the ground running. The fortunate thing is that it looked like Eli did on his cameo. Yeah,
he did, yeah. Whether they want to or not, Elijah Adebayo has to start on Friday night. It's that simple. We're in that possibility now, which we'll discuss when we record the Everton podcast later in the week. So their first goal comes from a long ball. The long ball, because we're pressing so well that they've got to force it long. Okay, we were kind of tempting them to force it long as well, like I say, by leaving 1-on-1 with Hwang. But just so happens, but the reaction to it was not good. Wasn't good at all. And what was it? 5-6 minutes into the second half. Now we can defend Hashi at times, and we will defend Hashi in a minute. The circumstances that are around him at the moment, judging him is harsh, but where you can judge him, you just cannot lose your man like that. You just cannot lose your man like that. At the very least, you've got to grab hold of him and make the referee make a decision. Now, if it gives a penalty against you, then so be it. In an ideal world, you stay on the right side of him in the first place. But you just cannot let your man have a free header from 6 yards out or whatever it was. And herein again lies the difference. That ball, bottom corner, no chance Kaminsky. Morris's header, same goal, straight at the goalkeeper. And this is a centre-back who scored this as well. So they're all...
It's only his second goal of the season.
Don't even go there. Totti, he was called, or Toti, they called him, but it looked like Totti to me. You cannot, for all that Hashi, as I said, is swimming against the tide at the minute, that's basic defending. And in our situation, we have to get the basics right. And we'll hear from Rob in a minute, and he's very disappointed with the second goal, as he's every right to be, because actually we can't do anything about it until then, because they play a short corner, but they don't play it far enough that we can get to the first contact, because you've got to be 10 yards away. So we literally can't go any closer to that short corner. Then it's rolled out to the edge of the box. We actually close the cross down. I'm not sure if it's a proper cross or a miss-hit one. It's done half loop up in the air. But Hashi has to stop the man having a free header.
Yeah, it's the simple basics of it, really, isn't it? And that's probably, it's largely what's undone Luton. There are the unlucky ones. There are their own goals, obviously, but it's the basics in defending. And he had so much space; it was unbelievable. And you could rightly see why Edwards would be disappointed, because they would train for this all the time, doing drills on this stuff, and it's always like a really preventable soft goal that causes the problem. And when you go 1-0's bad enough, 2-0, it's so difficult. You saw even after Morris scored how difficult it was to fashion chances. I think probably just the Berry one at the very end, and that was with 10 minutes of normal play, 6 minutes of injury time as well. It's so difficult. It's to come back all the time, to always having to be chasing your tails. It shows, and it shows in the result, and it shows in the way the results have gone for 13 games now, and it probably shows in the frustrations of some people at the way things are going, really. But like I say, I can understand the frustrations, because everybody get annoyed after it at the final whistle. But you sort of come back to it at the beginning of what we were saying at the beginning of the podcast, which is it's pretty much the same situation. It's just one less game.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. Yeah, so that second goal, really poor. But to be fair to the boys, they kept on going. They were given a lift with the substitutions. Very, very rare that Ross Barkley doesn't complete a game of football in a Luton shirt these days. He was taken off. Not Ross's finest hour. Just hope there was no injury situation to that. Just hope it was literally that he was giving the ball away a wee bit too much for Rob's liking. And, you know, the subs, they did make a difference. Luke Berry in particular made a difference. And then, of course, when Elijah came on a little bit later into the half, it was Luke Berry and Corley Woodrow that came on first of all. Then Elijah, then Fred came on as well. Elijah in particular, though, all of a sudden we've got this focal point. We've got someone who can hold defenders off. We've got someone who can run in behind. We know what Elijah can do. And you just saw in 15 minutes just how much we've missed him. In person, we've known we've missed it, but it's only when you see something that then you don't see it, you realise, you know, just the difference. But instantly, well, the first positive thing was he ran on the pitch, because the last time he came on the pitch after he was injured, he couldn't even run, could he? No. And that was at Huddersfield in the playoffs, so that was a welcome relief, and he had a huge impact. And it was his sort of running behind that forced the corner that Alfie's put over. Corley Woodrow's pass back to Alfie is an absolute stunner, isn't it? It's not really. It's the most shanked volley you've ever seen in your life. I have to admit, I thought Alfie was still offside from taking the corner. So well done to Alfie for staying onside, because no way in the world you can expect that pass to come back to you. He's shooting at goal there, Corley Woodrow. But he does, and he gets into the sort of just inside the penalty box and stands a ball up that gets kind of recycled by Reece Burke, very much in the Notts Forest at home goal, wasn't it? Reece Burke heads it down to Luke Berry on that occasion. Yeah. This time, Carlton Morris thumps a volley in for his 10th goal of the season, and here's where Carlton gets all the credit in the world that he deserves. 10 goals in this particular season. That's a decent effort.
Yeah, it really is. First man to do it in the top flight since Mick Harford.
10 goals.
It's a fantastic achievement for Carlton. He had a very sticky start to the season, goal scoring wise, and he so much so that he had to come out of the team, and then obviously had to adjust to a deeper position behind Eli, which worked really well. And there was a long period where goals weren't coming. So to have 10 in this season is really a fine return for him. I hope it should have been 11 really on the day, but. Yeah, it is really fantastic. I think and I hope that he'll thrive even more now that he's got his mate back on the pitch with him up front in Eli. And like you, I fully expect him to start against Everton on Friday. And yeah, and if that's the case, then it gives you more hope, doesn't it? Because when they were both on the pitch, January time, and they'd made these little changes, and it really, really felt like Luton had got to grips with the Premier League, and hopes were really high, wasn't it? And then the injuries set in for everybody, decimated everything, and it can't be underplayed. And I know some people kind of forget about it, but if you do recall at the beginning of the season, Rob Edwards said, and he's probably said it a lot since, that Luton Town have to be full tilt every game to stand a chance. And that you have to have your full squad as well available to play in the way that they do, which is very intense and high pressing, as they were at the time in January. You have to have a squad that's going to be able to come in and rotate and give players rests. These players that have had to fill in when we had like 13 players available, they're knackered. And it does show. You can't get away from that fact, but really to have Eli back and his ability on the ball is good anyway. He's great with his feet, but his press, he starts it, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's
and he's really, really good at that. And that's going to be such a big boost into the way Luton play, because it gives you some breathing space, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, Morris does a great job pressing, but he is knackered. The kind of power has gone out of his legs now, just because of the amount of football. So if we can drop him into that, I call it the link-up role behind the striker, the two that we play behind the one. He was doing such a good job of that. I think of that Newcastle game in particular, away from home, and the Brighton home game. Those two games in particular, they're the kind of halcyon moments of the season, aren't they? He was playing that role so perfectly at that point. So if we can get him back into that role where he doesn't have to chase lost causes as much, and Eli, fresh as a daisy, will have a lot more energy to do that. I really think that that's going to have such a big impact on us. And
also just not being that one man up front who all the pressure is on to hold it up. He does a good job a lot of the time, but then if there's nobody around him to bring people into play, it's far more difficult. He's also getting battered by some monster defenders, isn't he? So you can well understand why he's knackered. But there's more threat, isn't there, with the two of them on the pitch? That goes without saying. But the qualities that Eli brings, I think, will result in hopefully a few more chances created as well, and that obviously that's going to be needed because we're approaching must-win territory.
Yeah, and there's another man in the box. Right, you think of the Burnley game. We only started with Elijah up front. The game was crying out for crosses. When Morris came on, Vamos, there was the cross, and both of them in the box causing havoc. And Morris nods the ball into the back of the net, obviously assisted by Trafford, as we all know. So it's massive, massive positive to have Elijah back. The fact that he was good, the fact that he looked healthy, energetic, vibrant. I mean, his warm-up, I was watching him. He warmed up right in front of the Luton fans at half-time. And he was like dribbling the ball and side to side. And, if he had any problems, he would just be going in straight lines and maybe doing a few keepy-uppies. Or his warm-up was a proper warm-up. And it must have been somewhere in the back of his mind was like, oh, shit, last time I warmed up on a football pitch, it went, kaput. But he was putting everything into that warm-up. So that says to me he's back.
Yeah, well, my hope with it is that they've been very calculated with it, knowing that there's no point playing him in the previous game, even if he was sort of, 80% stuff. I think maybe take your time, make sure he's right, because you've got no second chances. We can't mess about it. He's got to be right and got to come in. You give him that 15 minutes at Molineux in the same way that, Osho and Lokonga got minutes in them, even though they weren't. Lokonga was good, but Osho wasn't so good in that first game back. But it's the minutes under the belt situation. You have to give that, because he has that in previous times. He has had to have a period of adjustment, and we can't do that, obviously. So, yeah, I think it is a positive. It's not all doom and gloom, certainly on that front, and I fully expect that he'll play against Everton, and then we just hope that it has the impact that we want, because there's a different complexion to this Luton side, and we've not seen it since most of 2024, really, isn't it?
Since he went out of the Man United game in the warm-up, pretty much. So we kept on going, 2-1. Like you say, we're back in the game. We huffed and puffed. I have to admit, the one thing that's baffled me from it all, we brought Fred on with 3 or 4 minutes of normal time to go. It was the last kind of block of substitutions that you're allowed. But you're 2-1 at the time. Goal difference is out the window now, right? I've been trying to work the permutations. I can't work out an outcome whereby we finish level on points with Forest, but Burnley don't overtake us, given that they play each other on the last day of the season. I.e., for example, we both lose and then we draw the last day, but Burnley overtake us with a win.
I think the goal difference situation was wiped out with the 2-5-1.
Yeah,
really.
it's gone, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So therefore, I can't get my head around how we finish a game where we're only 2-1 down, where they've already taken Cunha off. I wouldn't say they've declared, but they've cleared. Obviously, he's only just coming back to fitness. But it was Sarabia they brought on, nowhere near as an attack-minded a player, more technically kind of midfieldy kind of player. How we finish a game 1 goal behind with 3 centre-halves on the pitch and an attacking player in Andros Townsend left on the bench, not least because Andros Townsend can throw balls into the box, which is all we were doing anyway by that point. Or if you're going to do that, why is one of the 3 centre-halves not kept up for another body in the box? It just felt that one threw some kind of mixed signals out at me. I don't really get why you would do that. The 3-1 defeat, chasing a 2-2 draw, will have been of little significance. And I wasn't sure about that. And I don't know, maybe it's something you guys can ask on Thursday, but it just struck me that Rob's spoken so much in recent times about taking risks and being prepared to take risks. And to be fair, throughout his whole tenure in charge of this club, he's probably brought more attacking substitutions on when chasing a game than any Luton manager I can ever remember. So that maybe that's why it stood out even more, because we're used to him emptying the tank with attacking players. I just couldn't work it out. Just couldn't work out why. And poor old Fred, he brought Fred on. I love Fred to bits. I've said it before on this podcast, he's the nicest guy you'll ever meet, but he's just nowhere near a Premier League player. There was a move on Saturday. We got the ball out to him. His first touch was horrendous and it went straight to a Wolves player. And I'm sorry, but when we're chasing the game in that situation, again, like Hashi, the basics have to be done. And if you can't just control it, and it wasn't even pinged at him, it was just a normal pass. If you can't control the ball and keep the play moving, we need people who can. We really do.
This is the situation we're in, though, isn't it? Because of those injuries. But the
Townsend's ideal at doing it, isn't he?
The Townsend thing is a strange one, because he's been used quite sparingly anyway. And when he has made an impact, has made a big impact. So I don't know what the situation is there, whether maybe he's carrying a knock or something, because you would expect him to come on. But even then,
we're talking Fred coming on 2 minutes, 3 minutes from the end. You know, there was always only ever going to be 5 or 6 minutes of injury time. It wasn't a game that they time wasted the life out of, that we were going to get 10 or 12 minutes like that Palace game earlier in the season. But the situation that we were in on Saturday was exactly that we were in at Palace. And Townsend came on, put the ball in the box to Cauley Woodrow, who was also on the pitch at the time, and we got the equaliser. I'm sure there's a logical reason. Rob's not stupid, but I just can't think of what it is.
Yeah, well, no, you want the kitchen sink to be thrown at you at that stage, wouldn't you? And yeah, it is a strange one. It's got to be that way from now on. For the last 3 games, it's got to be kitchen sink stuff.
Yeah, I would think so. Certainly, if we lose any of these 3 games, and we have 3 centre-backs on the pitch and an attacker on the bench, and we only lose it by 1, I'd kind of be questioning what's going on here. I understand that we're still trying to get minutes into the legs of these 3 guys, but they'd done 80, 85 minutes. 5 minutes weren't going to affect it either way. So, listen, Rob's got more credit in the bank than any credit card company that, going around. But that just felt a little bit weird. As it turned out, we still had 2 chances to get the leveller. The corner that came over that was headed out to Cauley Woodrow's volley, inches wide of the post, and it could only have been inches. I've not seen this on Match of the Day or anything else. Could only have been inches, because Jose Sarr flew across to that post like his life depended on it. And then the very last kick of the game, again, and this would be really harsh to blame Luke Berry, but again, it's straight at him. If you can find the corner, you've probably got yourself a 2-2 draw, which I think overall, on the balance of the first 40 minutes and the last 20 minutes, we would have deserved a draw. But ultimately, we were nowhere near clinical enough to get that draw.
Yeah, but I think even at the beginning of the season, we were talking about getting more shots on target. So they've managed that front of it, but now that's the difference between, the top level, isn't it, and the elite, that they will find those corners. So maybe you could argue there's been some improvement there, get it on target, but still, Premier League goalies aren't going to let those slip through. And if there's one person you want the ball to fall to at that stage, it would be Berry, wouldn't it? And I think he knew it as well. His reaction,
exactly the same.
That was the chance, and it was gone. So it's disappointing on that. But I suppose, again, if you want to try and pick out some small positives, it's the fact that these balls are still dropping for Berry, isn't it? And there's probably there could be a goal in there somewhere these last 3 games.
Oh, that boy's got a magnet in his brain with football, hasn't he? Because wherever it drops, you don't even need to look who's there. You just know it's Luke Berry. You could stick a blindfold on and hear the kick of a ball, and it's Luke Berry who's kicked it, because we're so used to. He's very much like Paul Scholes used to be, isn't he? Can't tackle for toffee, but he'll still throw himself in. And he threw himself into a couple yesterday. But really, he uses the ball really, really well. And he knows exactly where to be in that penalty box when the ball drops. Obviously, he's nowhere near as decorated as Paul Scholes, but he plays that role very, very well. And at some point in these last 3 games, he's still got a hero's role to play, Luke Berry.
Yeah, I think so. But by necessity, he's playing more than he had done at any point in the early part of the season, that's for sure. And, he obviously popped up with that crucial goal against Forest. And he got one the other day, which ruined his record of having never lost when he'd scored. Which was
if you're going to ruin it in style, and at the very least.
Yeah. But the fact is, he's there in and around the right areas of the pitch and box, when the ball is dropping. And that's going to be so crucial. Like we say, the chances have dried up somewhat. Hopefully that changes with the introduction of Eli back into the team. But that's why when he gets thrown on in the late stages of the game, I think people are still quite excited because how many times he's come up with the goods.
Yeah, exactly that. And long may that continue. That's for sure. Okay, so I was disappointed at the end of the game, but I was still proud of the boys because any talk that they've given up, that they've given in after that Brentford game, we can put that to bed. They've not given up, they've not given in. Yeah, they're finding it harder to withstand these punches to the gut, as we all are. But they reacted in the right way. As I say, the first 30 minutes was as good a Luton performance as there's been over a sustained 30 minutes for a while, to be honest. And, and they chased hard. 2-0 down, they could easily have said, well, this ain't our day, we'll save ourselves for Everton. But they didn't do that. They kept on going as they always do. And, who knows? Had one of those shots just been either side of Jose Sarr, we could have come away with a point, which would at least have had us level on points with Forest, even if we were still behind them on goal difference. I think Rob was pretty reflective in his sort of post-match as well. Again, he's naturally going to be disappointed. This guy's a winner. We know that. We've heard it throughout, and but he saw the positives that I saw as well, I think. And here's what he said after the game.
Obviously come away frustrated, like everyone will do. We don't want to lose. But I saw a team that responded well after last week's disappointment. Look at 2-0 down, we could have gone the other way, but we showed commitment. We showed some fight. We got the last goal. We were pushing towards the end. So we've got to hang on to that. That being said, the first goal we can see, we have a good chance or a chance. I think 19 seconds later, the ball's in the back of our net from a long ball that thought we dealt with, and then a deflection. That I don't think it's going in without the deflection. So to find ourselves 1-0 down in that manner is disappointing. And then to concede, you can't stop a short corner. You can't really stop that loopy cross that comes in because we've got to be 10 yards off. So they're going to play one short. We can't stop that. We get out to the ball, force a long loopy one in, but that's where we've got to be better and we can mark. And don't allow anyone a free header. If we did, that's what I'm disappointed in right now. And really frustrated because obviously 1-0 down, you've got a better chance to get something from the game. We opened up. They had one or two half moments on counter-attacks, but nothing, that we couldn't deal with some emergency defending. And then we kept pushing. We found a way to get back in it. Good finish from Carlton. And then, kept pushing. But look, if we lacked belief or if we'd given up, you wouldn't have seen that fight back today. You wouldn't have seen, or we wouldn't have seen the commitment from the players to keep going. Thought people made an impact from the bench, which was good as well. It was great to have Eli back. And that's almost part of his training, getting him up to speed as well now. So he can have another good week. And it was great to have him back as well. I keep saying it, and I wish we could guarantee that we're going to win a game of football, but we can't. But what we can show is fight, commitment, organisation, and then try and be good with the ball and try and attack teams. And I thought, especially in the first half, we created some good moments. We needed to be a bit snappier with the final bit, some good crosses in, some half chances, some decent chances with Carlton or Clicker arriving in the box. But Ross had a good shot early on as well. So there were some moments there. But just we want that final bit to be creating those bigger chances with a little bit with more numbers or a little bit of a quicker sharpness, cleverer bit of play in that in the final third, which perhaps we lacked. But I thought there was intensity in that last 15, 20 minutes, especially with one or two of the changes. Corley had a good effect as well. So yeah, you're right. We can take that and the way we finished the game into Everton, which we know is going to be a great atmosphere and the lights on a Friday night at Kenilworth Road.
He's pretty reflective there, Rob, isn't he? You know, no need to panic yet. That's for sure. We are getting to the stage now where we're running out of wiggle room. But, you know, we're not there. We're not there yet. So he said all the right things there, didn't he?
That's all you can really say, isn't it? Yeah, the reaction was there, and you know, the Brentford game wasn't nice. But you know, to have only gone through a season getting pumped 5-1 by Man City and Brentford would have surprised a lot of people at the start of the season. And especially you see Sheffield United getting relegated on Saturday, again losing 5-1. They've been smashed 5.
It was so fitting they conceded 5 on their way down, wasn't it?
They've been smashed so many times this season that you know, Luton haven't had that and haven't had to contend with that. So yeah, firstly you had to have the reaction, and you know, played so well for a certain amount of time, 30 minutes or so, and like we say, the goal was a sickener because I'm not sure it's going in.
I mean, it's on target, but there's no way that shot's beating Kaminsky, is there? I mean, it's just not.
No. And then the second one is the defence at fault. But yeah, you do wonder whether, you know, probably Teden's playing with some pain, or shows maybe still got some pain from being out for so long. It was a bruising on his knee, wasn't it? And God knows how long that takes, but it sounds nasty. You know, it is needs must, isn't it? Players are going to have to come in because you know, a couple of games ago when there was one centre back available, at least now there are 3, and that's a bonus. So yeah, I think that's all he can say really. It's not doom and gloom in the sense that, and he didn't know that at the time, but we do know now that the picture is still, if Luton win against Everton, they're out of the bottom 3. For however long that is, we didn't know, but that's the target, and that's what you've got to aim for. So it's got to be, you know, positive going into that. Obviously, a couple of weeks ago, when you're looking at the Everton fixture, it's a big game for both teams. You're thinking, but Everton are safe, and they were safe even before the weekend, as far as I was concerned. And now they're comfortable. So what complexion that puts on it, I don't know, but I don't think it changes the outlook for Luton.
No, it doesn't. We talk about reactions. If you want to deliver one for once this season, Sheffield United, Saturday would be a bloody lovely time for you to produce it. It really would. We all want Forest to go down, don't they? Just basket cases who've annoyed everyone. So do your bit, Sheffield United. We've mentioned it earlier in the podcast. Daiki Hashioka is getting dogs abuse from plenty on all social media sites, actually, but it's wrong, really. Yes, he naffed up for the second goal. Ultimately, turned out to be the winning goal. But there wasn't a lack of effort or desire or anything else involved in that. But he needs to be cut some slack, right? This is a geezer who, I'd say he speaks broken English. Doesn't speak fluent, necessarily English, but this is a guy who's never played in the English game, who wasn't even playing for a top side in Belgium. He was playing in the top division, but not an Anderlecht or a Club Brugge or something like that. He was playing for a kind of mid-table side in Belgium. Have we not learned nothing from the Simon Sluga situation? That overseas players take time to adjust to English football. They just do. Forget the fact that the game's different, right? This guy, his family they've moved to a different country. Now, Luton's player liaison team is improving, but it's still nothing like a normal Premier League side would be, as it wouldn't be. We've only been in the side division 10 months.
Yeah.
So he's having to look for houses. Kids, if he's got kids, I don't know if he has or not, but if he's got kids, they need to be schooled. His wife needs to come over. Presumably she'll need to find work and everything else. Car, house, all the things that we take for granted as Englishmen working in this country. He has to sort out for himself. Work permits, he'll have had to have gone through all of that stuff. And whilst all of that's happening, we're asking him to play in the biggest league in the world that's scrutinised and up against the best players in the world. Yesterday was his 5th start for Luton, right? 2 of those starts were at Manchester City and at Arsenal. So legitimately, this was his 3rd comfortable start. He started against Bournemouth down there, and I can't remember the other game he started, but the Brentford game, of course. We've got to cut him some slack, haven't we? I know that he's made a number of mistakes. There's some bad luck on his side as well. You know, for Haaland to belt it into his chin and it end up in the back of the net, you can't do nothing about that. Even the Arsenal own goal, if we track Smith Rowe, it doesn't get anywhere near Hashioka. You know, and the ball just hit him. There was one yesterday, wasn't there, where the ball just hit someone and it trickled over the line. Sorry, not yesterday. Yesterday, Cucurella for the Chelsea Aston Villa game. The boys, he's learning his new teammates. I just think we've got to cut him a little bit of slack. As I say, we've got to learn from the Sluga situation. 6 months in, Sluga turned into the player that we all thought we'd signed. And I'm sure this guy will do as well. But by shouting at him, ridiculing him, claiming he's not good enough, that just ain't going to help anyone.
Yeah, he's not the only person that's not played in the Premier League, though, is he, in the Luton squad? I mean, pretty much everyone has. You throw him in the deep end he's signed in January, and it's always going to be difficult for him, but I think it's difficult for anybody that's signed in January to fit into a new squad. And then all the things on top of it that you mentioned, having to move to a different country and not necessarily being very fluent in the language, these things they'll take apart. But he hasn't been able to be deployed in the position that he was bought for, which, like you say, was probably the long-term successor for Kabore. And in that formation, the defensive formation with the 3 centre-backs and the 2 wing-backs, his role there is, he has defensive responsibilities. And obviously the weekend at Wolves showed that he's going to have to learn those a bit better. But his main attribute is to be an attacking force in the same way that Doughty has been for much of this season. Although obviously I think you can see that he's knackered because he's had to play and play and play. Considering in previous seasons he's been in previous clubs, at least he's had quite an injury record and hasn't probably had to go this long. And certainly the intensity of the Premier League ups it as well. But on Hashioka's side, that's what he's been brought in for. He had to play centre-back and he had to play against Erling Haaland and
Arsenal.
There was the Solanke goal for Bournemouth in the 4-3 when they came back. He's just gone through Hashi, hasn't he? And with a bit of skill and power as well. And that's not his role, really. I mean, you can say legitimately, he has to be stronger and stuff, but are you going to be stronger straight away, or are you going to have to learn that and become better? I've no doubt he will. He's a Japanese international, isn't he? Yeah, I didn't like reading that stuff about him. It was really disappointing. What I also don't want is that for any of these fractious things to come in. I think there's still so much unity at the club. I can understand people getting annoyed because it's in a relegation situation. We've lost over 20 games, and that's been so unusual for a decade now, isn't it? I suppose in the Championship first season there was a lot of games lost, but not that many. And some of them have been so difficult to take because we played so well and matched up these teams so well that you gained so many sort of neutral plaudits from other fans who wish you well to stay out. But it's the frustration of it, isn't it? And hopefully that isn't creeping in and like Hashi's be the scapegoat for it, because he won't be if Luton go down, he won't be the reason. There'll be lots of others. He's only played 5 starts and a couple of sub cameos as well. It's not right to jump on him that way. So yeah, I don't know if me saying it is going to calm down the Twitter sphere or whatever, but I think it's just time for some perspective.
Yeah, exactly that. I should correct myself. He didn't start against Brentford. He started both Bournemouth games and yesterday, as well as the Man City away game and the Arsenal away game. But he wouldn't have started any of them if Chio was fit or if Kabore was fit. And therein lies the thing. He was a long-term signing in January. And, much like Teden Mengi, he got thrown in earlier than expected. Teden had a lot more going for him. Notably, he's lived his life in this country. He speaks the language, and he played in the position that he played all along, whereas Hashi hasn't. And he hasn't complained. He hasn't down tools. He's given everything that he's got effort-wise. And also yesterday, he was up against Out-Nouri. When the teams of the season's done, he's going to be a contender at left-back. Out-Nouri. There aren't many great left-backs in this league. We've got one. He's definitely another one. And, it just so happens that he was better than him. And Hashi couldn't really get into the game. And it was magnified by the fact that he lost his man for the second goal. But no, I've learned from the Saluka situation that you have to give these guys time because, if social media had his way after that Derby debacle, we'd have never seen Saluka again. But we're only in a position where we could go up to the Premier League because of that save Saluka made at Wigan.
Mm-hmm.
So just learn the lessons from that.
Yeah, and for me to play some form of devil's advocate as well, there's a lot of still a lot of people going, well, one of the reasons that if Luton go down, it would be because you didn't do any business in January. Well, you did some business in January and you got Hashioka. And isn't that an example of why it's not a great window? And if you're going to bring somebody in, they have to hit the ground running, and it's very, very hard. He's a prime example of that, isn't he? And they had to ease him in as well, because when he got here, we didn't see him for a month, did we, after he did his first little lap round the pitch with his wonderful hair. And that's a thing. So I'm still seeing this thing about the January window. Nobody bought players in the January window across the board, really, in the Premier League. And there wasn't an injury crisis in January either. And who were you going to get? They never come up with these, not even a hint of a suggestion like, oh, we could have gone for him or this guy or that guy. I've never seen a name attached to it. It's just like, we should have done more business in January. You did some business in January. The guy's going to have to take a while to adjust. Simple.
Yeah, and all this, they never even tried. I mean, we literally had a geezer out in Ecuador or wherever that bloke was, trying to get a deal done. So yeah, that sort of stuff's nonsense. Let's hear from another person from Saturday, the aforementioned actually, Teden Mengi, who I have to say I thought was an absolute colossus once again. Who James hinted earlier that he might well be playing with some sort of pain or injury, but you wouldn't have thought it. I mean, he was up against Hwang. He dealt with him as well as he really could and just got unlucky with the goal. Here is our star centre-back.
There's positives to take, in my opinion. There's definitely a reaction from last week. We didn't give up. We definitely, we got the last goal of the game, which is a positive, and we kept going right until the end. So there's definitely positives to take in comparison to the game last week. But yeah, we lost the game, but we've got 3 very important games, 2 more home games. So yeah, there's still light. We prepare with the mindset that we're going to stay in the league. We go in with full confidence because really and truly we've got nothing to lose at all. And I've got full confidence in the team that we can do what it takes to stay in the league. I think after today it doesn't leave us in a bad position. But yeah, we go into those games with full confidence. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. Willing to play and help the team where I can. So yeah, I'm ready to do the business. Fans have been brilliant home and away. And I think it's really important that we can give something back to them. I feel like we just have like a different sort of fight with the fans behind us. For example, getting the last goal against Brentford last week. But with the fans, we can just keep going. So I really just encourage the fans to just stay behind us and stay with us like they have all season, and just get us over the line. I think everyone's got a chemistry at this club. So yeah, I think it is really important that we keep going strong. There's definitely a connection between everyone in this team. There's no red links, there's green links everywhere. So yeah, we just need to kick on really.
Yeah, forget that last comment about chemistry. We all knew that was there anyway, but shout that message louder. before it about the fans being behind them and everything else. It just goes to show what we said just before we heard from Teden about Hashi. Get behind these guys, give it everything we've got over these last 3 games, because we're not out of this yet. There are plenty of people who watch this who've seen Luton escape from much more dire situations than this in this very division. If we stop believing in the stands, that's it. It's over. So we have to be behind these boys until that league table has an R next to our name, which we hope will never come. We've got to be behind these boys.
It's going to be so huge, and well, particularly in the Everton game. Listen, sometimes 3 o'clock kickoffs on Saturday have failed to live up to the hype, but under the lights, if ever Kennel Throw is going to have to, be such a cauldron, it's going to have to be Friday. The stakes are so high, but achievable as well, because you win that game and you're out of the bottom 3. All the pressure's on Nottingham Forest, and hopefully Sheffield United turn up. I don't know. They haven't turned up a lot this season, but if there's one time, let it be that weekend. But it makes no difference in that game whatsoever if Luton don't do the job, and it has to start from the stands, and I'm confident it will.
Yep, me too. You heard it from one of the players that's on the pitch, just the impact that we can have on all of this still. And like he said, 2 home games from 3, and they could be huge. I still think 2 wins gets Luton another season of Premier League football. And, well, time will tell on that one. That's for sure. That's pretty much it for this episode of the podcast. No correct scores that were correct. There were loads of 2-2 picks, so close to getting that one right, and lots of 2-1s the other way, myself included. We just got the score the wrong way round on that one, but so no correct scores for this one.
Well, you're running out of time to get back a level on me on this.
Listen, if Luton can still stay in the Premier League from 1 behind with 3 to go, I sure as hell can still win this prediction league. Don't you worry about that, my friend.
Well, we'll see about that. I'm confident. I'm very confident.
Time will tell. That is it for this episode of the podcast. Thanks as ever to the Hightown Club for hosting our set as they always do. To Sean Grant and the Wolf. It didn't make no difference me changing, did it? Still lost.
Well, you could
just a bit more narrow. So we're going back to normal now.
Okay.
Thanks to Sean Grant and the Wolfgang for our intro music, and to Ed Smith Creative for all the designs that you see on set. Before I do completely close this up, a young lad came up to me on Saturday just after I was talking to Mark Crowther, the cyclist, and asked for, he said that he watches every single episode of this podcast, or at least his dad did. He was a little bit shy. And he asked for a photo, but me being an idiot, I still had other things running through my head. I completely forgot to ask the young lad's name. We want to give him a shout out as he's watched every single episode this season. So if you're watching this one, and I'm sure you will be, can you please just comment on the YouTube comments, and I promise in the Everton review podcast, I will give you a well-deserved shout out.
Absolutely. Yeah, cheers for everyone that watches all the way to the end of each podcast, even when it's been a defeat as well. We like doing them, so thanks.
Absolutely, yep. Until next time, which is a preview of the biggest game of football since the playoff final. Come on, you Hatters.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people.